Well, I think, one thing that you got to consider is we all think back to our first jobs. You don't know anything. You're confused. You got a ton to do and you're figuring out on the fly. The first job's miserable for the first year or so in most cases, just because you have no confidence in what you're doing. And so it takes a little bit of time. But I think the most important thing to teach our children, and this is just, parenting 101, is you don't stumble into success, right? You've got to chart a path to success, and you got to have some milestones as you go. And that's the same thing with the family business, that, hey, you're going to start sweeping up the shop floor and you're going to work your way up, and you're going to do the things that you don't like to do because someone has to do them, and you need to appreciate that. And I think that if you have that path, once again, and you give them little wins along the way, that helps them, build and understand what the business is, and help form an opinion if it's someplace they want to spend a professional career.
Do you see situations where the second generation is already actively involved in the business and it's that first generation that's not ready to move on?
That happens all the time. And, the second generation, you see it, and we all talk about millennials now, and, technology's improved so much, and how the younger generations operate versus older generations is different. They both have their merits, both have their flaws. I think that where you have, the winning strategy is open communication between the two generations. And I go back to the first generation needs to be that conqueror that's going out and growing the business. But that second generation, more than anything, has to take care of the customers that they already have, as well as have a growth mindset. And that's a different skill set for sure.
What happens in those situations where some family members work in the business and other family members go off and chart their own paths? They own an interest like everybody else in the family, but they've got no control over the business, and they're basically watching their siblings take over and run it.
Sometimes with great resentment, and sometimes not. But it's a real challenge for both sides.
It really is. You get situations where spouses are involved, whether working in the business or chiming in on it, and we should get in this. I think it goes back to continuously having a plan for the family. This is what the expectation is. If it's third or fourth generation, maybe folks not working in the business are going to benefit from it. But they have to decide as a family, the folks working within the business are assuming more risk. Are they going to be compensated differently?
But I think one thing I'd add to that too, I think we're all saying the same thing, is communication, right? That's where we see the biggest failures in all these examples that you're bringing up, Craig and Adam, of different types of ownership structure, who's involved and who's not. Having an open communication, frank communication, and often and early goes a long way to solving a lot of these problems and getting rid of and removing as much anxiety and tension as possible. But you're correct. You have owners or people have interests. They're not working the business. You have some that are working the business. There's resentment. And a lot of times that you're benefiting from my hard work, you shouldn't get the same share as I have, or conversely, well, mom and dad wouldn't let me in the business. They let you in. So that can create its own tension and anxiety unintended. Even though you think you might be doing the right thing as the patriarch or the matriarch of the family, really communication just goes a tremendous way to having success, generation after generation. And even if you decide to sell,